Welcome to Lightboard Learning, where we break down principles of coaching. Now today, I'm going to be talking about 4 ways that you can progress your client's resistance training or their strength training. So I'm going to illustrate this between a week 1 and week 2 example and the 4 different variables that you can change in their program design to make sure they're progressing in their strength. So week number 1, I have 5 sets of 5 reps at a tempo of 40x0. Let's say this is for a back squat. So on this back squat, the 5 reps by 5 sets, our client is performing them at 225 pounds. Now there's 4 ways I can choose to progress this. Number 1 is going to be sets. Number 2 is reps. Number 3 is load. And number 4 is tempo. So to break those down a little bit, let's start with sets. So we went from our 5 by 5, and in week number 2, I've added on a 6th set. So now my client is performing 5 reps for 6 sets of the back squat. Tempo stays the same, load is going to stay the same. The only thing I'm manipulating there is increasing the volume by adding on a set. Option number 2 is going to be reps. So here, I'm actually going to reduce the number of reps that my client is doing in week 2. Instead of doing 5 by 5, they're actually going to do 4 reps for 5 sets. And by taking away 1 rep from every single set, the client is going to be able to increase the intensity or the amount of weight that they're lifting. So they went from 225 pounds in week 1 to 255 pounds in week 2 because we went to 4 reps for 5 sets. Option number 3 over here is load. So with load, I am keeping my 5 by 5 the same. I'm still having them do the same number of reps and sets. Tempo stays the same, so it is still 40x0. The only thing that's going to change is that client is going to add an extra 5 pounds to the bar. So instead of squatting 225 pounds, they're now squatting 230 pounds and making that small little gain in tonnage over week 1 to week 2. It is important to note that this won't work for every client, especially more advanced clients. They're just not going to be able to progress from session to session at such a rapid rate because they already are quite close to their max physical potential. But for a newer client, a really great option for progressing them. Option number 4 is going to be tempo. Now tempo is how we manipulate the time that that client is lifting the weight for. So up here, our tempo was 40x0, which is a 4-second eccentric or lowering, 0-second pause, explode to stand, and then 0 at the top. Now, in week number 2, I'm changing that tempo and making it 30x0. So I'm taking that 4-second eccentric and I'm turning it into a 3-second eccentric. So the total time under tension for that movement is going to be smaller. They'll have the weight on them for less time, which is going to mean that they can actually lift a little bit heavier. So they're going to go to 235 pounds for week number 2. So here I've illustrated 4 different ways that you can progress your client, and the way that you choose to do that is always going to depend on who they are. Whether they respond well to volume, whether they respond well to intensity, and then ultimately what you're working towards in the end goal of their program design is going to determine how you progress them from week 1 to week 2. Now, how long do you stick with one progression? It really does depend. There is no right or wrong answer here, but something to keep in mind is that if they stop progressing and you stop seeing, an increase in the performance of that client, it's probably time to change it up and use a different element to manipulate their progress. Now, a good place to go to learn more variables and ways to progress resistance training is actually our Programming Principles course, and you can check that out on our website.